We're here with a review of Bad Education. It came out earlier this year, and it won an Emmy for the best TV movie recently. This is directed by Corey Finley, and it is starring Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney, and
Ray Romano.
Geraldine.
Oh, yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, I almost forgot Ray Romano. Yeah. And Geraldine Viswanathan.
Okay.
I believe that's how you say her name.
Yeah.
I hope I aced it. I've been struggling with these names lately. I promise I'm trying. But this movie starts off really interesting. You see Hugh Jackman as this like really sweet guy who knows everything about everyone. He's dedicated to his craft.
Yeah. For those who don't know, oh sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, go ahead.
For those who don't know, the film is about a school superintendent who is Jackman's character, and it's placed in this like upper New York suburban type community. That's and when Henry's talking about like he knows everyone, he's like always walking the hallway saying hi to students. I just wanted to set that context.
Yeah, definitely. And important to know, this is based off a true story.
Yes.
And this is spoilers as well, so make sure you don't spoil yourself if you don't want to. So Hugh Jackman is kind of this really nice guy, but as the movie goes on, you kind of find out that there's something wrong on the fiscal side. And eventually you come to this realization that Allison Janney because you first see Allison Janney's home and you're like, wait, she works at a school.
Yeah.
How does she have like 4 homes and she's insanely rich, and this girl's like her like nephew or niece is asking to use her credit card. I'm like, she's not that rich. She shouldn't be that rich. And then you find out she's been stealing money from the school. Do you remember exactly how they figured that out?
This is what I was just thinking about while you're talking about this. It was basically a series. It was like a domino effect because her son, who is presented as not being the brightest bulb in the bunch, like uses her credit card, but buys like an obnoxious amount of stuff and like charges it to the school or something like that. And then they go from him to another person to her, and it's basically just one guy's mistake, like careless mistake, like totally random, just causes the whole thing to like the whole image just to fall apart and expose everything.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to that guy, Jimmy Tatro. I believe it's American Vandal is the TV show.
Okay.
That he's in, and he is so amazing in that TV show. He does not get enough credit because he's like a great actor, and he plays that. I think he gets typecast a lot
because I haven't seen American Vandal.
Yeah, of like being the stupid kind of jock kind of guy, who's not the brightest bulb, but he plays that role really well. And I think he's also a YouTube personality. But anyways, the point being, he's great, and I saw him immediately, and I'm like, oh no, I know exactly where this is going.
Yeah.
So that gets uncovered, and then Hugh Jackman seems like the hero. He's coming in, he's saving the day. He's like, what's the best situation? What's the best way to fix this? And instead of going and telling the school district, because he wants the new budget passed and this new skywalk, this fancy new thing, he decides to cover it up.
Yeah.
And just have her like quietly like retire. And we're like, all right, this is a bad.
Came up with a whole like fake story too, like about illness, right?
Yeah, they said she had cancer and she was getting gifts from people. And meanwhile, she's in one of her 4 homes. I think she's in her beach home. And it's like the irony of what's going on is just too good.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, and then you find out Hugh Jackman's making these really, really poor decisions, but you also say, well, I kind of understand what he's doing. He doesn't want everyone to get fired for something that's kind of an oversight.
Yeah.
Which is why you get fired, because you're not doing your job. And after that, you think that was the big thing, and it's gonna, they're gonna get caught in that. You find out it gets worse.
And it just snowballs, and it's just then you have like a student gets involved in this whole thing. That's Geraldine's character, and like you have the parents teachers association, which is where Romano's character comes in. Just like all snowballs. It's like just gets man, like that whole like third act, just everything is just building up and just like all like just falls apart.
Yeah, yeah. And I think some of the I mean, Hugh Jackman is great.
Oh
He's
yeah.
like he's so great in every role, and there's no exception here.
In a way, like man, sorry, I don't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say like I feel like in some cases like in conversation like Hugh Jackman can be like so like overlooked. Like people are like Wolverine and that's it. And, like Wolverine is obviously great acting showcase for him. Like he's just like so like he's such a reliable guy. He's always so like just always like he always does great in every role. And I remember when I first watched this, the Emmy nominations came out and he received an acting nom, and I was like, interesting, okay. And then halfway through, I was like, I don't know about this, but then by the end, I was like, oh, he totally earned that nomination. He was so good.
He's fantastic.
Mm,
Yeah, I think people fail to realize how good of an actor he is. If you see him in Prisoners, he's fantastic. I mean, he could have won an Oscar for that role.
mm,
I mean, he was that good. Um, but anyways, moving back to the movie itself, the way he can be so intimidating. He can go from being the nicest guy, um, especially the scene where he's talking to Geraldine,
yeah.
and then the accountant comes in,
Hmm.
and he's so nice to Geraldine. He's like, "Oh, I can help you with the story." And the accountant comes in, and he's like, "The numbers are right. Like Allison Janney's character stole even more money than you thought she did."
Hmm.
Um, and he's just like, and the guy doesn't even realize that it's not Allison Janney and that it's
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman
Hmm.
until he brings up the plane ticket,
Hmm.
and everything kind
Yeah.
of clicks.
And a lot of it is also like just the dialogue driven. I recall that exact scene you're talking about. And, like Hugh Jackman never like overtly like threatens him, but he's just like late like describing a scenario, describing a situation, and he just sort of like lets the other guy like figure it out on his own, and then the other guy, the accountant, is just like, yeah, I should probably like stay quiet. Like I think that was just a lot of those scenes with Geraldine, the accountant. I think he was also talking to like another lady worker too. Do you remember? That's
Oh
he was like
yeah,
asking for like a position, and he like demoted her.
yes, yes, yes.
And,
That's
like
the niece I was talking
yeah,
about earlier who was
yeah,
asking for money.
like those three scenes, the dialogue was like just so good, and Hugh Jackman like delivered it so well.
Yeah, that niece scene where she's like saying, "If you don't give me a promotion, I'm gonna snitch."
Mhm.
And then he just like exposes her. She's like,
Yeah.
he says everything that she's been doing wrong.
Mhm.
He talks about all the money she's stolen.
Yeah. He lays
Um,
down that Uno reverse card.
yeah, yeah, but he does all of that by saying, "That's a nice necklace you have."
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that's what he says. And
Yeah.
by saying that, she's like, "Oh, he knows that I'm involved too, and I'm
Mhm.
bluffing."
Right.
And then he's like, "You're gonna work in janitorial," and she's
Mhm.
like, "Yes, I am."
Yeah. Oh, gosh, he was so. Excuse me. Those three scenes, were, like, just written well, delivered well. Like, oh gosh, you see his full like character like come out in those parts.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Geraldine because I think she's awesome in this film.
Mhm.
I can't remember what other movie I saw her in. I remember seeing her in something else where she was just like the star of the show. She kind of just steals it.
Oh, was it?
Blockers,
Yeah,
Blockers.
I was just gonna say.
She's great in Blockers. So great in Blockers.
Mhm.
And I was just like, wow, she's like this great like young detective.
Mhm.
In looking at her possibly being cast for Miss Marvel, I just played recently the Avengers game where she's like kind of a detective in
Yeah.
not the traditional sense, but finding all this new information and kind of being how the story's told. And I'm like, I can totally see that. Um, and I see that in this film in the climactic scene where she goes to New York to find this room that's been being paid for years, $800,000.
Yeah.
$800,000 are stealing from the school. Hugh Jackman's stealing from the school, and she goes and she knocks on the door, and it's some random dude,
Hmm.
and she's just like, "Oh, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I must have messed up." Something's wrong. And as she's leaving and she's going back to get in the elevator, Hugh Jackman's in the elevator, and
Yeah.
she's just like, oh
That
no.
scene was nuts because I was just like, no one's in inherently any danger. It's like I was like, I'm pretty sure he won't like wring her neck or whatever. But it's like when they turn and they look at each other and she just runs out. I was like, oh my god, that was like the most tense like thing I've ever seen. To see just to see them like there together.
And that's great writing and that's great directing, because that's creating tension out of a moment that, like, in the big picture,
Yeah.
oh, what's going to happen? Like nothing.
Mhm.
But feel for those characters and like what they're, you understand what they're going through,
Mhm.
that you have the tension from the side of Hugh Jackman. Oh no, he just got caught.
Yeah.
And from Geraldine, that like, oh, she just found out everything, but also Hugh Jackman knows that what she knows.
Right.
And that comes into play later when they have that scene on the bench outside of the school where they're sitting across from each other. And
Mhm.
Hugh Jackman's just powerless. And he's saying
Yeah.
basically, you know, you don't want to do this. It's going to ruin your school. You're not going to get into colleges, all that.
That scene too was like so cool just because like you see him like he's like trying to maintain like he's the superintendent, he's got authority over her, and he's like still like talking in the way we talk, like we're discussing, like it's kind of been very subtle threatening, but he's also like he's like desperately trying to like like beg with her, like just don't do it, and she's kind of like sorry man, I gotta do this. That was great on Jackman's part too, and Geraldine was such a great scene partner in that moment.
I think
Man.
it's a really layered performance from Jackman,
Yeah,
um,
100%.
because you have the first act where he seems like a really good guy. The second act where you're like, oh, he's making a mistake.
Hmm.
He shouldn't be doing this, but I don't think he's a bad person. And there's a third act. You find out he's stealing money. Find out he's stealing from his fiance, or he's married to the guy he's been married to for like 30 years. And you're like, oh wow, this guy is really, his whole personality is a facade for who he really is.
I thought, yeah, like he's honestly, Frank Tassone. That's his name, right? Doctor Frank Tassone.
I believe so. Yeah.
Like he is like like a probably the most underrated film protagonist I've seen this year, just because like he's such a complex like character. I like by the end, I was like, especially that scene on the bleachers with Ray Romano.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was just like, you're such a like there's so much happening in your head, there's so much happening in your life, so much that you've like planned and not planned for, and like one of the things like I couldn't like wrap my head around was like, why did you, like, for a while there before that bleacher scene, I was like, why did you steal? Like you seem to be like, you have the respect, you seem to be relatively like well off, like why'd you take the money? And he's talking to Ray Romano, he's like, I accidentally paid for a sandwich with the school card and no one noticed, and so next day I like paid for a car wash, and it just kept going from there.
Right.
And the way he was saying, like, I've done all this stuff for the school, like I got us to like number 4 in the country, I can get us to number 1. Like he was doing consistently one bad thing, but he's also like doing so much good in a way, like to like in his head balance it out. And I don't know, I've when he finally got like defeated or whatever, like I felt really bad for him, I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, man, you're doing so much, but you're also like stealing, and it's just like a weird,
Yeah.
contradictory, like, oh man,
Yeah. In a way,
there.
it's frustrating because you don't feel for just him, but you feel for all those kids
Yeah.
that are going to get caught in the crossfire.
Hmm.
That all of a sudden this very like prestigious school is now going to be put down a peg, and
Hmm.
those kids who have those possible futures of going to like these massive schools can no longer go there.
Yeah.
And on one hand you're like, oh, we'll deal with it, you didn't get into Harvard, I'm so sorry for you, you can only go to another great institution.
Hmm.
um, but you're like, wow, at the same time you're like, wow, that's a great opportunity that you might no longer have because of that. And all these people who had nothing to do with it are
Hmm.
gonna suffer because of it. And it's like, just the way this film is constructed is really, really amazing in how it
Yeah.
layers all these different things,
Yeah.
so you can come from all different angles and still have some sort of deep emotional feeling at the end of the
Yeah.
third
Even
act.
like Geraldine's character, I didn't expect her to like like I expected her to have like depth there, but like seeing extended scenes with like her dad, and like you start to see like there's things that happened in her personal life that are mirroring like what's happening like with what Tasson's doing and all that. I was just like, you didn't. I think you could have done without this, but the fact that you did it and you like, I'm saying this for Corey Finley and whoever else wrote the script, like you didn't have to necessarily do. I think you could. There was a way to do it without such scenes, but you did it. You did it really well, and it made the whole thing like all parties were given a spotlight essentially.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite scenes. It's at night, they're watching television,
Mm-hmm.
and Geraldine's talking to her father, and her father's talking about how he was part of the inside trading,
Yeah,
and that he didn't do it, and for a while he didn't know about it, but he found out and he was complicit.
yeah,
Um, and how, you know, just being complicit in something is you're being guilty because you're part of the problem.
right.
And I think that thematically is something that's really important to everything in the world today,
Yeah.
of people who see all this injustice going on
Mm.
and they know it's wrong, but rather than do something, they just kind of stand by and let it happen.
And that just makes you just as guilty as the people like doing it.
Right, right. And, you know, he had eventually, there was repercussions for him not doing the work and him
Mm.
not doing the right thing. And I think that for Geraldine as a character, you can kind of feel that as an audience of you or pushing Geraldine to say that, you know what, I can't just sit here and watch. I have to do the right thing,
Mm.
even if there are going to be negative effects on my life, even if it's going to
Right.
affect personally what happens to me. I have to put what's better for everyone ahead of necessarily what's better for myself in this moment.
And the fact that they managed to filter such like a huge deep thematic arc into a high schooler, like and not make it feel like I don't know that she was like overtly like fiction. She still felt like a real person. It still like made sense with the pieces they arranged for her character. Like again, we've been saying it like just great writing all around. I'll admit I was a little um, disappointed when I found out it won Best TV Movie just because it was going up against the Breaking Bad movie El Camino, which I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed. But honestly, now that we're discussing it, like there's a lot of smart choices just motivating everything that happened in this movie.
Yeah, and right before I think we're kind of wrapping up here, I want to give a shout out to the screenwriter because I'm a big screenwriting person.
Yes, here.
We're both screenwriting minors and film majors. Mike Makowski is the screenwriter for this
There
film.
it is. Okay.
He did a fantastic job, and I think he deserves credit because without him writing the script, you never get a film like this.
Right, right. Shout out to Corey Finley too. Excuse me. I think directing wise, he did a great job. I was like from what I've read, like he was actually like a student at the same school, so there's a personal connection to the area. And I don't know, I think the subject is just really fast because it's the classic like oh someone's stealing money, but like they placed it in such an unusual setting in the school, a successful school at that, and they also he directed and Mikowski, right? That's how you
Yeah,
say it, right? Mikowski just wrote like a crazy, like complicated protagonist, and yeah, man, well, really one of the more underrated films this year. I think it's because it was just released on TV, and so it didn't get like a lot of attention, which kind of sucks because it is like a really good film.
yeah, it's
Where,
it's really a bummer.
where does it? Do you have an idea of where it ranks in your 2020 rank?
Yeah, so Um, eventually, we'll be releasing our kind of 2020 ranks so far. We haven't quite finished the list yet. I
Right.
know I'm getting close to kind of finalizing my list.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if it's number one. I don't think so.
Okay.
Right now, I have it at number four of 2020,
Okay.
but I think it could go possibly all the way up to two.
Okay. Got you. It's hanging right now for me. It's hanging in top 10. It's kind of like honestly, it's like jumping around a bit. Have to
Mhm.
rewatch a few things. But thus far, that would top 10 movie for me. And even though like not a lot has been released this year, I still think in normal circumstances it would have like worked its way up there.
Yeah, yeah. That's for me. It's top 4 out of 21 2020 movies I've seen so far.
Got you. Got you.
But anyways, that's our review of Bad Education. If you have HBO, definitely go check it out. It's worth it. It's a really good film. Um, and if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Did you agree with our review of the film? Do you think it was worse? Do you think it was better? Um, do you think Hugh Jackman could be nominated for an Oscar if this was an eligible film? Do you think Allison Janney could? Do you think any of the other actresses or actors could be? Let us know down in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.